All right, it's 8:35. We're gonna get started. Today's November 20th, not the 19th. Yes, the view model. Yeah, so the model is kind of just like a generalization of the repository, and no one picked repository. So yeah, if you're thinking model, like there can be some business logic in the model, but like typically the bulk of it is in the view model. Yeah, this is the okay, actually, yeah, it should have been all of the above. Sorry, I think I selected the wrong answer there. Um, Yeah, okay. I mean, I think all of the above is fine here. I guess like okay, I think the best answer would be to abstract away the data source that our application uses. The thing is like the purpose of the model itself is not just abstract away complex networking calls. Like remember that a model can be an abstraction for any data source, right? It could just be like local storage. In that case, you don't have any networking calls to make it easier for the view to manage coroutines. Remember, there's like the bridge between the model and the view, which is or like there's like a gap, right? That's like the view model. Like the view model is kind of like an abstraction barrier between the model and the view. So really, like the model will never really make it easier for the view to manage coroutines. So actually, yeah, sorry, it is triangle. I did choose that intentionally. So yeah, this is like more on a technicality though. Like you do sometimes use the model to like abstract away networking calls, I guess, but it's like it's not like the purpose of the model. That would more be like a purpose of like a a networking API. So yeah. Cool. Okay. Purpose of the view model, choose the best answer. Okay, this time it is actually all of the above. Doing it, yeah. So the reason is, I mean, yeah. So most people got this one, handle intermediary logic between the model and the view. That is like the main purpose of the view model. So if you did choose that, like assuming all of the answers was not there, then like you would have the best answer. But yeah, in terms of like these other ones, communicating events from the repository to the view. So let's say like you send out some long running application or like some long running request that like deals with data, and then you want like your repository to tell you that like to tell the view, hey, that request failed, like you need to show something to the user to tell them that that request failed, right? That would be an example of like communicating event from the repository to the view. It's like the bridge between the model and the view. And then here, when we're communicating intents from the view to the repository, like when you click a button to load a resource, right? You're communicating the intent of loading that resource to the repository, and then the repository will load that resource for you. So yeah, or flows. Oh, okay. Yeah, the two best answers were split like 50-50. So the thing is, a flow does not capture like the history of changes to a value. All it does is emit the latest value and allow you to respond to that. But this the flow has no notion of changes over time or history or anything like that. So yeah. And then podium. Nice job, everyone. Cool. And then slides for today. Not very long slides. Yeah, we did the Kahoot. Cool. Okay, so just like brief announcements, Hack Challenge kickoff is tomorrow from 5 to 6 p.m. at PSB 120. So be there. Yeah, P6 is still due on Sunday. Just a reminder. Yeah, and then the demo. So we're going to use the like model view model design pattern to create an app that displays jokes to the user. And you're gonna have to deal with like two different data types here. So like jokes with punchlines and jokes that are one-liners. And I would say like focus on getting the one-liners to show first, and then like figure out how to show the ones that have punchlines. So I'll show you an example, and I'll also like go over the schema because this problem is actually a little bit more complicated than it might seem. So yeah, here's the app. Going to cover the code. Okay, so we get a new joke, and it loads, and you can see I added some animations, which is fun. But let me like zoom in. Uh, okay. Wait. I I'm in I put this in safe mode, so it's not supposed to like give bad jokes, but we'll see. Yeah, okay. So there's one joke, right? You can already see this app is bringing so much joy to us. So this is what you'll be making. Yeah, and then you can see there's also one-liners. So if it's a one-liner, it will just say the thing. It won't have the option to toggle the punchline. Yeah. I don't know if you're taking back end, hopefully you understand that one. But yeah, so you can really play this all day. But yeah, it's very simple. You just have a button that has get new joke, and you want to have like a loading state here. Like you can see the API is pretty fast, but it does have a loading state. So keep that in mind. And yeah, let's just go over the schema for this for a little bit. So I'm gonna pull that up. Oh, and also make sure that you guys should use the generic MVVM template on GitHub. So I posted to Ed. Let me get here. So I posted to Ed. Oh, let's see. Yeah, here we go. I posted to Ed this link, which has like a link to the GitHub repository. So it's called A6 Starter, but there's multiple branches. So I want you um to clone generic MVVM setup. If you haven't like cloned on Git before, you can always just like hit the download button. So there's generic MVVM setup. And this is going to be like your starter code for today's demo. So you can just like hit download zip, or you can clone if you know how to do that. So yeah, this is going to be your starter code. It's like similar to what we went over last lecture. And let's talk about the API for a little bit. So here's the joke API documentation. I'm not sure like how tough that is to read, but yeah. So I guess like a couple things to note is that your base URL, let's see. Yeah, you can use this as your base URL right here. So that's one thing that you can note. And then the other thing is like you should probably use safe mode. I mean, I can't tell what you're doing on your computers. But this course officially recommends that you use safe mode to use this API. Because you can see there's a lot of different tags for these jokes. And I'm not responsible for any jokes that you might see. But yeah, so if you want to like use safe mode, there's also like a section on that. Which is right here. So yeah, you can add like safe mode to the URL. Uh And I think they actually, oops, I think they give you like, yeah, they give you an example of how to call it. So big hint, this is like, you want to make a GET request to this URL, basically. Hopefully that should save you some time. So yeah, that's how you can access the jokes. And then I want to talk a little bit about the joke schema as well. So, uh, oh wait, okay. Hopefully this won't be too bad. I have to blacklist all of these. Okay. And then send request. Cool. Okay, so here we can look at like the schema of it. So you can see that like you'll want to model the schema using a Kotlin data class. And one thing you'll notice is the type. So this is what I was talking about with like the two-part versus the one-liner. So here the type is two-part and it gives you a setup and a delivery. But if we keep going, eventually we'll get a single. And that single, it doesn't have the setup or delivery properties. It only has this joke property right here. So so yeah, you'll have to account for those cases. Try to see if you can figure that out on your own. And definitely like raise your hand if you have any questions or like if you're getting stuck. But yeah, this I think this is gonna be pretty challenging, but I want you guys to try to figure it out and learn from it. So yeah, let's go until 9:15. It should be 30 minutes, and then I'll do 10 minutes for the actual implementation. Yeah, any questions? Yeah. Oh yeah, so if you go to Ed discussion and click on this link, so it's under lecture and P6 starter code, and then you go to branches. Actually, I think it should already be on the branches for you. And then it's just a branch called generic MVVM setup. That's the starter code that you want to use. Is that good? Okay. Any other questions? Cool. Okay, so we can just get going with it then. So yeah, you have till 9:15. And I'll put on some lo-fi as we do. Docs can. He's just an artist that I like. Yeah. Actually, I don't think I've heard this one before, but okay, let me mute my mic. Okay, can you still see my screen? Okay, good. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's go over this. I want to start from scratch, which is a little risky. We'll see if I can get it done in 10 minutes. But yeah, let's go ahead and try. So hmm, I'd like to actually, okay. I think what I'll do, yeah, I just want to remember that URL for later. But okay, so I'm going to go back to the generic setup. Um, and then that has the code that you all started out with. So let's start by specifying like a data class for our joke. So um, I'm gonna like do a little bit of cheating and copy and paste this because it's like a lot to type out. But basically like we really it's pretty like self-explanatory. We need to just set up fields for all of the properties that we want to parse. So I just did that here in this data class. And then the other thing to note here is that we have three nullable properties, right? The setup, delivery, and joke, because those will only be present like based on what type of joke it is. So we can just represent those as nullable. So yeah, there's our joke data class, pretty cool. And then from there, we want to like in the app module, right? We want to use the base URL. So that's goodbye. Okay. Uh goodbye. Let me see if I can find okay. I'm actually just gonna quickly check out the other one. So um, okay, so this is just so I have access to the base URL. So the here that was like v2 joke API dot dev, right? So back and then paste that in. So yeah, and now that we have access to that, we can also use this to find the other URL, which is the safe mode. So the example, right? So I told you guys to send a GET request to this URL. So we're going to take this and then we're going to specify it in our API. So we're going to do at GET and our URL is going to be this, but we already have our base URL in, right? Our base URL looks like this and it has a slash at the end. So I don't think we need a slash here. And then we're going to do get jokes or get joke. And that is going to be a suspend fun and it's going to return a result. So yeah, I don't think we like explicitly went over, or actually no, we did in the networking. Yeah, in the networking lectures we did go over this. So we're gonna return a result and it should be um is it result? Do you remember what it's called? I did press. Oh yeah, response. Thank you. Yeah, so response of joke. Um, all right, we have to import that. Cool. Okay, so there's our API specified, and Retrofit's gonna like take care of the implementation of that for us, thankfully. So now we can go into our repository, right? So we're kind of like moving down. We're starting at the top at the repository, just specifying how we're gonna get our data. We're gonna move down to the view model, and then finally move down to the view. So let's do that. So here's our repository and our API, and then instead of like we're gonna get rid of this init block, and instead what we're gonna do is create a function called get joke, and this is actually just going to exactly just return the response of our API function. So let me see. Oh yeah. So this definitely might seem a bit pointless to like have a repository here. And like I think for that, I think like just for the sake of time, I'm not going to like change this response object, but like typically you would want to like wrap this into like a generic response object that just contains like whether it failed, whether it succeeded, instead of like all of these network details, right? And then in that way, the repository would be acting as an abstraction of the database, but like in this case, we have like a very simple example. So we're not, it is going to be more like boilerplate right now, but when you have like larger scale apps, it will be more useful. So then in our view model now, we have a couple things to specify. We have a view state and we have our view model. So in our view state, we're going to think about what properties do we want to display, right? Um, so one thing that like you might end up thinking of is to like show the loading state. You might want to show like you might want to have some sort of loading indicator, like is loading. I think like the best way to do this really would be to have a sealed class. Because remember, a sealed class is like a one of type. So I'm not expecting that you were able to like think of doing a sealed class on your own. Like as long as you're able to get like some sort of working data class, that's fine. But I'm gonna show the way to do it with a sealed class. So we have our main screen view state, and there's we're gonna make some subclasses. So first is this loading one, and that just represents when the screen is loading. And then we want a data class loaded, and this data class is going to have a couple properties. So it's going to have a punchline and a setup, and then potentially just a joke. And really, all of these should be nullable because we don't know if it's going to be like a one-liner or a multi-liner. So that's our loaded data class. And then like really, we should also have one to represent an error as well. So this is the kind of thing that you want to be thinking about when you're like building out your screens for networking. You want to account for every case. And a sealed class, right? It can't just be a main screen view state. It has to be one of the inheritors. So it's either going to be loading, loaded, or error. And now that we have our view state specified, we want to like expose that view state. So what we're going to do is create a private variable. And I'll just say that that's underscore view state is equal to mutable state flow. And we're going to give this main screen view state dot loading. So the reason I put this underscore here is it like shows that this view state is mutable, that I can change it and that I'm not going to expose it to the view. And the one that I will expose to the view is just going to be called view state. And that's going to be underscore view state as state flow. So yeah, that's going to take that mutable state flow and just convert it to a state flow. And then what we want to do from here is we want to expose a function, right? Because our view is going to want to get jokes. So we can expose the get joke function. And then here, what we're going to do is this get joke function is going to call a long running operation. And because of that, we want to use a coroutine scope. And in view models, the coroutine scope we use is called view model scope. So we're going to add view model scope here. And then what we're going to do is add in the call that we want. So joke is equal to my repository dot get joke. And now our joke is a response. So there's a couple things that could happen with this joke. If the joke dot body or yeah, wait, yeah, so we should probably use dot let here actually. Because we're checking if something is null, right? You don't really want to use an if statement for that. Dot let is typically better. So dot let, and then now we know we have some sort of joke. And if we have a joke, then we can put this in our view state. So yeah, so in that case, we want to basically update our view state. And we're going to create a main screen view state dot loaded. And then the punchline is going to be it dot, okay, let's see. Oh, right. Because I lost this parameter. So this is going to be going to pass in our joke. Joke dot delivery, I believe it's called. And then setup, joke dot setup, and then we still need joke dot joke. And maybe I'll like rename this to joke info. And let's see what this is. Oh, right. Okay. So one thing is that like your compose is going to assume that this view state is of type main screen view state dot loaded. Because remember, main screen view state dot, or sorry, main screen view state dot loading. Because loading is actually a class, which means that this underscore view state, if we look at its type, you can see that it's the type main screen, it's a flow of loading, but only loading, right? But we want it to be a flow of view states in general. We don't want it to be just a flow of loading view states. So to do that, we can specify our type here and use angle brackets. And that should fix that. Okay, cool. So there is our main screen view model, and we can get jokes from it. And that's great. Okay, so now we want to go over to our main screen and try to see if we can implement this. So the first thing we want to do is I just like to have a column that like centers everything in the screen. It just makes it easier to see. So we're gonna fill max size and then center. So um, center and then vertical, we're also gonna center. And let me zoom in as well. Okay, cool. And now we're gonna make a button, and this button is going to get our jokes. So when we click, we want to call get joke, and we're gonna put text inside this button that just says get joke. Okay. Yeah, I am 1 minute over, but I think we should nearly be done. We're gonna get finished very soon. But yeah, if you do need to go right now, if you have something after this, feel free to leave. But yeah, you can also stay and see the rest. So cool. Okay. We also want to like observe our view state. And remember, our view state is a flow. It's a state flow, actually. And the way that we observe state flows is so we can capture them in a stateful variable. So we do the view state, and then we need to collect as state, and we have dot value. And remember, like all flows, when you like take their values, you need to collect them. So that's why we're collecting it as state, and then there's our value. And we have this button, and now what we want to do is take a look at our view state. So this is for sealed classes. You don't need to do this if you just have like a view state with different properties. Then you can just use if statements on the properties. But here, this is a nice way of saying, okay, our view state has to be an instance of like one of these three types, either error, loaded, or loading. So for error, I'm just going to show error. For loaded, I'm going to leave that as a to do. And then for loading, I'm going to show a progress indicator. So that's like a little component that Android is already built in for you. Okay, and then under loaded, now we know our view state is of the main screen loaded type. So we have some different parameters that we can use. So what we can do is we can check, okay, do we have a setup? And then if we have a punchline as well, joke punchline. Then we can show both of these. For the sake of time, I'm just going to show them in a text. I hope that you would have the UI skills to like put an animation and hide and show it if you want to. So setup, and then cool. Okay, and then otherwise we might end up having a one-liner, right? So if we just have a full-on joke, then we show that joke. And yeah, it is just, I didn't actually write out the name of the parameter, so I'm just using it. Okay, yeah, I know I went through that very fast, and unfortunately we did go over time, but I think like having this more challenging example will prove helpful during A6 or P6 P6. So yeah. Hmm?
Hack challenge as well.
Yeah, hack challenge as well. Oh yeah, and then the other thing is that you can also actually after this demo, I'm going to push like the full code with the animations and everything to the GitHub so you can use that as an example. Okay, so you can see it looks like it's already loading, and that's just because I didn't specify an idle state that like for the sake of time. But we're gonna get joke. And what did I forget? Does anyone remember? Did anyone run into this problem actually? Probably not. That's okay. So internet is one of those like permissions that we need to add, even though it's automatically granted, we still actually need to put it in. So hopefully we won't crash. And if we do, I have the logcat ready. So let's see what happens. Oh, okay. It looks like we got it. Uh, yeah. So there's your reward for getting through this demo. Here's a joke. Um, yeah, and we can see if we can get a one-liner as well. Um, wait, I didn't filter it for the two-parters. This is like a streak of. Okay, there we go. Um, yeah, amazing joke. Thanks everyone for coming. You are now very free to leave. or ask questions if you have any. And yeah, I will actually upload the code to this right now. So yeah. Oh, actually, it's already uploaded. So you had the answers the whole time. Uh, yeah. So it should be. Let's see if I can find this. I just want to verify it's actually there. Yeah, right here, jokes demo. So, yeah, if you want to look at the code or just like try it out, have a laugh, perhaps you can. But yeah, that's it. Thanks everyone for coming. Last demo.